All right, welcome to a very interesting one. This is called the Whiskey Rebellion. And the Whiskey Rebellion was proof of the Constitution's strength. So, if Shays' Rebellion was proof that the Articles of Confederation were too weak, the Whiskey Rebellion is proof that the Constitution was strong. The Whiskey Rebellion lasted from 1791 to 1794. The Whiskey Rebellion was a 1794 uprising of farmers and distillers, that means those who make whiskey, in western Pennsylvania in protest of a whiskey tax enacted by the federal government. Following years of aggression with tax collectors, the region finally exploded in a confrontation that resulted in President Washington sending in troops to quell what some feared could be becoming a full blown revolution. Opposition to the whiskey tax and the rebellion itself built support for the Democratic Republicans, who eventually overtook the Federalist Party in power in 1802. The Whiskey Rebellion is considered one of the first major tests of the authority of the new government under the United States Constitution. The American Revolution, individual states incurred significant debt during it. In 1790, Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton pushed for the federal government to take over the debts of states. He also suggested an excise tax. An excise tax. What is an excise tax? Well, let's look at number 3. Scroll down a little bit. An excise tax. Excise taxes are taxes paid by the producer of a specific good, such as whiskey. So, in 1790, Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton pushed the federal government to take over the debts of states. He also suggested an excise tax on whiskey to prevent further financial difficulty. President George Washington was opposed to Hamilton's suggestion of a whiskey tax. In 1791, Washington journeyed through Virginia and Pennsylvania to speak with citizens about their views. Local government officials met the idea of a whiskey tax with enthusiasm, and Washington took this assurance back to Congress, which then passed the bill. But protests against this new tax began immediately, arguing that the tax was unfair to small producers. Under the new law, large producers paid the tax annually at a rate of 6 cents per gallon, and the more they produced, the further the tax breaks. Small producers were stuck with paying 9 cents per gallon in taxes. Farmers took the issue further because only cash would be accepted for tax payment. Washington assumed emergency power to assemble more than 13,000 men from the surrounding states and eastern Pennsylvania as a federal militia. The rebellion quickly faded in the face of such a strong army, especially under the command of George Washington himself. Approximately 20 people were indicted for their roles in the rebellion. Only 10 people stood trial, and only 2 were convicted of treason. To the dismay of Alexander Hamilton, Washington pardoned the 2 convicted of treason, which means that Washington let them go. The federal response, this is important, the federal response to the Whiskey Rebellion was widely believed to be a critical test of federal authority, one that Washington's early government met with success. I hope this is helpful, and I hope you're doing well.